Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we have quite a specific mission, actually. It's laser focused and, frankly, pretty high stakes.
Hmm.
We're essentially building an actionable, personalized blueprint. It's for you, our listener, specifically if you're gearing up for one of those really critical English call center interviews.
Yeah, and not just any English call center. We're talking about one dealing specifically with British clientele. That's a whole different layer, isn't it?
Absolutely. So this isn't about just, brushing up your general English.
Ah, no. This is rapid, targeted skill acquisition for a very specific performance environment. And the skill set required,
Oh,
well, it's complex.
how so?
You need that flawless technical execution, sure, but also sustained emotional control, keeping cool under pressure. And then there's the linguistic accuracy. That's huge.
Right, not just vocabulary.
Definitely not. We're
Yeah.
talking the right accent, the right intonation, even the cultural precision, getting the politeness level just right for the British market.
Which means slow, casual study. It's just not going to cut it when the pressure's really on.
Exactly. It won't work. You need deep competency, and you need it fast.
That's why we're digging into a really interesting source today. We're bypassing the usual study tips and going straight for something called the Learner's Vault. 100 protocols for mastering skills.
And this isn't just, a list of helpful hints. Think of these protocols more like operating systems. They're methodologies used by really elite learners, people who have to master complex skills incredibly quickly.
Like who?
Think chess masters gearing up for a tournament, innovators under pressure, even diplomats needing rapid language immersion for a new posting. These are forged in high-stakes environments.
Well, failure just isn't really an option.
Precisely. They teach you how to approach skill acquisition, almost like an engineering problem.
Yep.
Very systematic.
So our mission today is to pull out the most powerful, the real needle-moving protocols from this vault.
And use them to build your personalized, intense training plan, specifically designed to turn you into a kind of competency machine, tailored for that UK call center interview.
Okay, sounds intense. Let's unpack this. Where do we even start?
Well, first things first, before you even touch the skill itself, the foundation has to be mental, psychological.
Right. Calibrating the mindset, getting your head in the right space.
Exactly, because when you're tackling something as complex as, say, mastering a new accent or really internalizing those specific British politeness markers, the biggest enemy, it's usually internal. It's fear.
Fear of what specifically?
Fear of making a mistake, fear of sounding awkward or silly, fear of not meeting some, perceived standard of perfection right away.
Okay, so how do we fight that? Which protocol comes first?
That brings us straight to Protocol 1, the growth mindset. It sounds simple, maybe even a bit cliche these days, but for something like accent work, it requires total, genuine internal commitment. Meaning, you have to absolutely believe deep down that your ability to adopt those British English patterns, things like the non-rhotic R, where you don't pronounce the R at the end of words like car, or the specific rhythm and intonation, that ability is not fixed. It can be learned.
It's a skill, not an innate talent.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming from, say, an Egyptian Arabic background, or maybe another form of English where the sounds are quite different. The linguistic demands here mean you must embrace being temporarily incompetent.
That's tough for most people.
It is. The source emphasizes this key phrase, radical self-correction. You can't allow yourself to think, oh, I'm just not good at the glottal stop. That little catch in the throat for T sounds, like in butter becoming bar.
Right. Very common in many UK accents.
You have to consciously replace that thought with, I'm not good at the glottal stop yet. It's about believing your brain, your mouth, your neural pathways can adapt. And they will, with focused effort.
Okay, so believe change is possible. What's next? If we accept, we'll be incompetent for a bit.
Then comes maybe the most humbling part. Protocol 6. Allowing stupidity.
Allowing stupidity sounds fun.
Well, it means you have to be prepared to sound deliberately foolish during practice. Really.
Why?
Because that fear of looking foolish, that's exactly where most people freeze up. They stop experimenting in front of the mirror or with a language partner. If you're aiming for that clear, professional British sound, sometimes called RP or something similar, you have to exaggerate the sounds in private first.
Like really overdoing the mouth movement?
Yes, you have to celebrate those initial awkward attempts that might sound like a bad caricature. If you skip that phase because you're worried about sounding less than perfectly fluent right now, your learning just stalls. You get stuck at okay instead of pushing towards excellent.
So embrace the awkwardness. Got it. We've set the psychological stage, given ourselves permission to make mistakes.
Permission to fail quickly and often, yeah.
Now we need to deal with where we're actually starting from. Protocol 3 is embracing ignorance.
This is important even if you're already a fluent English speaker. For this specific task, British customer service communication, you need to approach it like a total beginner.
Why? What's the benefit of the beginner's mind here?
It's open. It absorbs new rules without constantly filtering them through old habits. Think about British politeness markers. Things like, might I trouble you for? Or, I shall certainly endeavor to assist.
Which can sound quite formal, maybe even indirect compared to other styles of English.
Exactly. You need to absorb those without comparing them constantly to maybe your more direct default style. You have to start from a genuine 0 point for this specific context to really internalize that required linguistic deference, that specific level of politeness.
Okay, this sounds like a lot of intense, focused, maybe even repetitive practices coming up. Repeating sounds, drilling phrases, sounds potentially exhausting.
It can be, which is exactly why we need Protocol 7. Game, not work.
Gamify the learning.
Essentially, yes. If you frame repeating audio clips of ideal call responses or drilling those specific British vowel sounds as just monotonous work, well, your motivation is going to tank pretty quickly.
So how do you turn vowel drills into a game?
You define levels. Maybe level 1 is hitting 95% accuracy on 5 key technical terms pronounced correctly. Level 2 is using them fluently in a simulated roleplay under a strict 3-minute time limit. You can use points, visual progress trackers, maybe even small rewards for hitting milestones. It keeps the energy high. It keeps you engaged.
Right, makes sense. And since we're treating this like engineering, we need precision. Vague goals won't work.
Absolutely not. Which brings us to Protocol 4, the specific goal. You cannot afford the fuzziness of just saying, I want to speak better English for the interview.
Too broad.
Way too broad. A vague goal leads to vague actions and vague results. Your goal needs to be measurable, almost forensic, and time-bound. It shouldn't just be, get the job.
Give me an example of a specific goal for this context.
Okay, how about, within the next 4 weeks, I will master the received pronunciation of the 50 most common technical terms for Product X, be able to handle the 3 most frequent customer complaint scenarios, let's say billing error, technical fault, delivery issue following the company script, and maintain 90% accuracy on key British intonation patterns during recorded mock calls lasting at least 5 minutes.
Wow, okay. That is specific.
That level of specificity dictates exactly what you need to do each day. No ambiguity.
And that clear, specific goal, it needs something to pull you towards it, right? An emotional driver.
Yes. That's Protocol 5, inspiring vision. You need a vivid mental picture that acts as your North Star through the tough practice sessions.
What should that picture look like?
Don't just visualize yourself successfully resolving a call. Visualize the feeling of calm control, the confidence resonating in your voice, maybe imagining the interviewer nodding subtly, impressed not just by your answers, but by your polished professional delivery, your command of that specific British linguistic register.
So it's sensory, how it feels, how it sounds.
Exactly. That emotional and sensory rehearsal is what pulls you through the grind of perfecting the small, difficult details, like really nailing the difference between the vowel sound in bath as a British speaker versus, say, an American speaker. It's those details that signal mastery.
Okay, vision locked in. Now for the day-to-day reality. How do you keep the momentum going? Protocol 9 is patience on results, impatience on action. That sounds a bit contradictory.
It does, doesn't it? But it's perhaps the single most important discipline for this kind of long-term skill acquisition, especially language and accent.
Explain that tension. Patience versus impatience?
Look, realistically, shifting an accent deeply or fundamentally changing communication habits, it takes time, months, maybe longer. You won't sound like a native BBC newsreader overnight. So you have to be infinitely patient with those slow, often non-linear long-term results. Except the gradual nature of it.
Okay, that's the patience part. Where does the impatience come in?
The impatience must be directed squarely at your daily actions. You need an aggressive, almost intolerant attitude towards skipping your planned practice. A 0 days skipped mentality, if possible.
So focus on the process, not the distant outcome.
Every single day. Ask yourself, did I execute my 45 minutes of targeted pronunciation drills today? Did I record myself and critically review those practice attempts against the model audio? If the answer is no, then you failed that day's action, regardless of how far off the long-term goal feels. Focus relentlessly on the micro goal of today's work.
A makes sense. Intense focus on the immediate task. And one final piece for this mindset section, making sure that daily action actually happens. Protocol 10, public commitment.
Right. This leverages a bit of positive social pressure. Announce your specific goal, landing this particular job, nailing this interview to someone supportive, a friend, family member, maybe a study partner who understands the challenge.
Why does saying it out loud help?
It externalizes your motivation. It creates accountability. When you inevitably hit that wall, that internal resistance whispering, just skip practice today, the knowledge that someone else knows your goal, maybe is even tracking your progress informally, can provide that crucial external nudge to just get it done.
Okay, so the engine's primed, the destination is specific, the daily drive is mandated. But the territory itself, excelling in a UK call center interview, it feels huge. How do we even start navigating it?
That's exactly where we go next. We move from mindset calibration to the actual engineering of the learning process, deconstruction, and strategy.
Right, breaking down this enormous skill into something manageable. Because the first reaction can definitely be panic. Where do I even begin?
Precisely. And these next protocols are all about bringing structure and simplicity to what seems overwhelmingly complex. It's about smart work, not just hard work.
And we kick this off with a classic principle applied to learning. Protocol 11, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle.
Yeah, the idea that typically roughly 80% of the results come from only 20% of the effort or inputs. For our listener, the question is, what is the critical 20% for succeeding in this specific interview and role?
So identifying the high leverage elements.
Exactly. For a call center dealing with British clients, that 80-20 is likely quite specific. It's not about learning thousands of obscure words. It's about identifying and mastering the 20% of phrases, the 20% of technical jargon, maybe even the 20% of specific British phones or intonation patterns that will generate 80% of successful professional communication in that context.
Can you give some concrete examples? What might be in that crucial 20% linguistically for a UK call center?
Sure. It's likely not about knowing every synonym for problem. It's probably more about
Mastering maybe the 5 most critical empathy phrases, the ones that perfectly hit that specific standard of British professional politeness and maybe emotional restraint. Things like, I do understand this must be frustrating for you, or I do apologize for the inconvenience this situation has caused. Getting the tone right on those is key.
Okay, empathy phrases. What else?
2. Core modal verbs for politeness. Mastering the use of would, could, might, shall for requests and offers, saying, would it be possible for you to confirm your postcode? Instead of a more blunt, give me your postcode. It's a subtle shift, but signals immense professionalism in that context.
Let me indirect this.
Exactly. And 3. Key foams. Maybe focusing intensely on just 2 or 3 pronunciation points that often cause confusion or sound unprofessional if done incorrectly. Perhaps certain vowel sounds that differ significantly from the listener's native language or other English varieties, or that non-rhotic R. Mastering just this handful gives you a huge return in clarity for relatively focused effort.
So identify the vital few. Once we have that 20% list, how do we learn it effectively? We need a roadmap.
That's Protocol 13, decomposition sequence. You need to map the learning journey logically. What must be learned first before you can tackle the next thing? It's about understanding the dependencies.
Like building blocks.
Exactly. You wouldn't try to practice complex conflict resolution, which needs speed, empathy, and improvisation, before you've completely automated the basic professional greeting and the identity confirmation script, right? Those basics need to be second nature.
So what might a logical sequence look like for our listener?
Okay, a possible phased approach could be
Foundation. Really nail that 20% vocabulary list and the core accent phones. Get the sounds right first. Record, listen, repeat. Phase 2, structure. Automate the standard call flow. Greeting, verification, basic issue identification. Practice it until you can do it smoothly, maybe under a little time pressure.
Okay, basics automated.
Phase 3, application. Now you tackle specific scenarios, master handling, say, the 5 most common customer objections or difficult situations, using pre-approved scripts or strategies that align with British customer service norms. Focus on things like de-escalation here.
And the final phase.
Phase 4, stress testing. Now you integrate everything and add pressure. Practice while typing notes simultaneously. Introduce simulated stress role play with someone acting as an extremely angry or confusing client. Test if the skills hold up.
That structured approach definitely seems less overwhelming than just learn everything.
It manages the cognitive load,
Hmm.
And to fight that feeling of being overwhelmed even further, we use a slightly counterintuitive but powerful strategy. Protocol 19, the ignore list.
An ignore list, you mean deliberately not learning things?
Exactly. This protocol is a lifesaver for rapid skill acquisition. You create an explicit written list of things you will intentionally ignore or postpone learning for now.
Why would you do that? Isn't more knowledge always better?
Not when speed and focus are paramount. You're making a strategic sacrifice, temporarily trading breadth of knowledge for depth in the absolutely essential areas.
What kind of things would go on the ignore list for this specific interview prep?
Good question. For this context, it might include highly regional UK slang, like deep scouse or Geordie slang, which you're very unlikely to encounter in a formal customer service call. Maybe the intricate history of the company's founding family. Or deep Tier 2 or Tier 3 technical troubleshooting details that are clearly beyond the scope of the immediate role you're interviewing for.
But hang on, isn't there a risk? What if a client does use some obscure regional phrase or asks a super technical question? Won't ignoring it leave you unprepared?
That's a fair challenge, and yes, there's a tiny risk. But remember the immediate goal. Pass the high-stakes interview and achieve what we might call minimum viable competence for day one. The risk of getting bogged down and distracted trying to learn 50 different regional dialects is far greater right now than the risk of encountering one obscure idiom you don't understand.
So it's about probability and focus.
Exactly. Professional call center interactions tend to be more structured, more standardized.
Right.
You filter out the low probability noise, so you can focus 100% of your energy on mastering the high probability signal. Clear, professional, standard British English communication for service. You can always learn the niche stuff later once you've got the job.
Right, triage for performance. Okay, that makes sense. Now, how about leveraging other people's experience? Shortcut the learning curve.
That's Protocol 14, interviewing experts. You need to tap into the hard-won knowledge of people already doing this successfully.
So find current call center agents, or maybe coaches.
Yes, find maybe 3 to 5 people. Could be current agents working with UK clients, team leaders, quality assurance specialists, or even language coaches who specialize in British business English or accent reduction for this market.
And what do you ask them?
Don't just ask for general tips. Ask targeted questions designed to bypass months of your own trial and error. Questions like, knowing what you know now. If you were starting from scratch today to prepare for this role, what are the absolute top 3 things you would focus on? Or, what's the single biggest mistake you see new agents make when dealing with British customers for the first time? Their answers are pure gold.
Stealing their hindsight. Love it. We also need to anticipate our own potential roadblocks, right?
Absolutely. That's Protocol 15. What stops me? This is about proactive problem solving. Before you even encounter the barrier, identify your top 3 anticipated difficulties and plan specific countermeasures.
So on a self-assessment, what might be common barriers for someone prepping for this UK role?
Okay, common ones might be Barrier 1. My professional accent tends to slip when I get stressed or have to speak quickly. Countermeasure. Design specific practice drills where I have to speak under time pressure, maybe with background noise playing, forcing me to maintain accent consistency under duress. Record and review these specifically.
Okay, stress inoculation. What else?
Barrier 2. I worry about understanding very fast or heavily accented British speakers, especially if they go off script. Countermeasure. Deliberately incorporate daily listening practice with challenging audio. British news podcasts and maybe dialogue from films or TV shows known for fast speech, perhaps even listening at 1.1x or 1.2x speed to train my ear to process faster.
Proactive planning. Okay. Now, before the actual interview, we need some kind of smaller victory, right? Something to aim for.
Yes, proof of concept, that's Protocol 18. The MVP, or minimum viable project, what is the smallest self-contained unit of success you can achieve that demonstrates core competence?
So it's not just passing a quiz.
No, it has to be a performance simulation.
Right.
An example MVP for our listener could be, successfully execute 1 complete 4-minute mock call role play. This must include greeting professionally using phrase A, confirming identity using procedure B, successfully handling a standard billing query scenario using polite phrases C and D, clearly articulating the next steps according to policy E, and maintaining target pronunciation and tone throughout. Pass-fail.
So it's a mini performance test.
Exactly. Once you can reliably hit that MVP, you've confirmed that the core mechanics of the skill set are actually working together. It builds huge confidence.
And finally, in this strategy section, how do we gather the best possible training material?
We become detectives. Protocol 20. Reverse engineering.
Meaning?
Find examples of excellent call center work. Ideally, actual audio recordings or detailed transcripts of successful interactions, particularly those involving British agents or customers if possible. Maybe the company provides some best practice examples.
Okay, find good examples. Then what?
Don't just listen passively. Deconstruct them. Analyze the architecture of that successful conversation. Ask why it worked. Note exactly where the agent paused. What specific word choices conveyed empathy without sounding overly familiar? Why did they phrase that request as, "Would you mind just confirming," instead of something else? You're isolating the specific ingredients of that successful recipe so you can replicate them yourself.
Got it. So we've mapped the territory, identified the key targets, and found our models now. We actually have to do the work, the hard yards.
Right. Now we move into the mechanics of deep focus and effective practice. This is where those new neural pathways actually get built.
Okay, the nitty-gritty. Because language learning, especially accent work, can feel kind of fuzzy sometimes. How do we make the practice really count?
This section is all about focusing your cognitive energy like a laser beam. It's the difference between just passively listening to British English and actively physically rehearsing the sounds and structures until they become automatic. Muscle memory for your mouth and brain.
Where do we start? Managing our energy seems key if this is intense.
Absolutely. We start with Protocol 21, timed focus sessions. You might know it as the Pomodoro technique.
Right, short bursts of focus, then breaks.
Exactly, because high-level language mimicry, forcing your tongue, lips, jaw into new positions to accurately produce British vowel sounds or consonant clusters, it's incredibly mentally draining. You simply cannot sustain peak concentration and effort for, say, 2 straight hours.
So what's the rhythm?
Use focused bursts, maybe 25 minutes, maybe 50 if you can manage it, and dedicate each burst to one specific task. For example, 25 minutes working only on distinguishing and producing the difference between the short I sound in ship and the long E sound in ship, a common challenge.
And after the burst?
A short, defined break, 5 minutes, maybe 10. Get up, walk around, disconnect completely. This protects your mental stamina, prevents burnout, and ensures that the practice you do is always high quality, high focus.
Makes sense. But that focus is pointless if distractions creep in, especially with phones buzzing.
Non-negotiable. That brings us to Protocol 22, distraction-free environment, and Protocol 29, distraction notebook.
Total lockdown.
Pretty much, during those focus sessions.
Yeah.
Especially for auditory training. If you're trying to hear the subtle difference between two very similar British vowel sounds or master a specific intonation pattern, a single notification sound can completely derail the process. Phone off, we're in another room. Email closed. Social media off limits.
But what about those random thoughts that pop into your head? Oh, I need to remember to buy milk.
That's where the Distraction Notebook 29 comes in. Keep a simple notepad next to you. When an unrelated thought pops up, must email finance, what's for dinner? Don't engage it. Don't follow the thought trail. Just quickly jot it down on the pad.
Why does writing it down help?
It acknowledges the thought, gets it out of your head, and parks it externally. Your brain trusts that it won't be forgotten, so it can release it and return 100% of its focus to the actual practice task, like nailing that tricky new sound.
Okay, environment controlled, focus protected. Now, how do we apply the effort smartly? This isn't just about reading scripts aloud, is it?
Absolutely not. This is where we get into training like an athlete. Protocol 31, deliberate practice.
What makes practice deliberate?
It means your practice activity is specifically designed to target and break down a known weakness. It's not just going through the motions.
Give me an example for our listener targeting that UK call center role.
Okay, let's say feedback shows your listener struggles consistently with the sound. Maybe they substitute an S or Z or F or V. Deliberate practice isn't just reading a script that happens to contain the words.
So what is it?
It's designing a specific drill, maybe spending 15 minutes only on minimal pairs, words that differ only by that sound, like sync versus think, free versus three, exaggerating the tongue placement, recording yourself. Then maybe practicing a list of the 20 most common the words they'll use in the call center, drilling them at increasing speeds. Then immediately integrating those words into the core politeness phrases identified earlier. It's targeted, it's often uncomfortable, but it's incredibly effective.
That targeted work leads directly to the next point, which feels absolutely critical for accent modification. Protocol 32, immediate feedback loop.
Critical is the word, especially for pronunciation and intonation. The time lag between you making the sound and you knowing if it was correct needs to be as close to 0 as possible. Milliseconds, ideally.
Why is immediacy so important?
Because if you practice a difficult sound incorrectly and then only review the recording, say, the next day, your brain has already started to cement the incorrect motor pattern. You've practiced the mistake.
So how do you get immediate feedback?
Record yourself. Use your phone, use software, say the target phrase or sound. Stop. Immediately play back your attempt. Immediately compare it to the native speaker model audio clip you're working from. You have to become your own real-time quality assurance engineer. Compare actual output to the target spec constantly.
Constant comparison. Okay, now what about embedding all the other stuff? The technical jargon, the company policies, the complex sentence structures. How do we make those stick long term?
Right, we need to lock that knowledge in. We use two powerful memory techniques here, Protocol 34, spaced repetition, and Protocol 37, retrieval practice.
Space repetition first. How does that work for, say, learning product details?
If you need to memorize complex technical specs or specific refund policy steps that core 20% jargon-spaced repetition systems, SRS, are fantastic. You review the key facts or terms at scientifically calculated expanding intervals.
Like review it an hour later, then a day later, then 3 days, then a week.
Exactly. There are apps and flashcard programs that automate this. Anki is a popular one. This process essentially tricks your brain into recognizing the information as important and transferring it from fragile short-term memory into more durable long-term storage. It fights the forgetting curve.
Okay, SRS for memorization. What about retrieval practice? You called it a cognitive superpower earlier.
It really is. Retrieval Practice 37 is based on the finding that the act of actively trying to recall information from memory is far more effective for learning than passively rereading or re-listening to it.
So testing yourself is better than studying.
In many ways, yes. Instead of just rereading the troubleshooting guide, cover up the solutions and force yourself to remember the steps. Instead of just looking at your list of polite British phrases, try to write them out from memory. Use flashcards not just for review, but primarily for testing.
Even if you struggle to remember.
Especially if you struggle. That effortful retrieval, even if you fail and have to look up the answer, strengthens the neural pathways associated with that information much more profoundly than passive review ever could. It tells your brain, this is important, I need to access it.
Test yourself constantly. Got it. One more protocol in this practice section, making sure we truly understand the concepts, not just memorize them. Protocol 38, the power of explanation.
Also known as the Feynman technique. The basic idea is you don't truly understand something until you can explain it simply.
How does this apply here?
Let's say there's a complex product feature you need to explain to customers. Or maybe a subtle rule about when to use could versus might in a formal British request. Try explaining it out loud, simply, as if to someone who knows absolutely nothing about it. Maybe a friend, family member, or even just an empty chair.
What does that process reveal?
It immediately exposes the gaps in your own understanding. If you stumble, if you have to use jargon, if you can't find a clear analogy, boom, you've just pinpointed exactly where your knowledge is weak and needs more focused work or clarification. Teaching is one of the fastest ways to learn.
Okay, so we've built the skills through intense, focused, deliberate practice with immediate feedback and active recall. The tools are theoretically there, but now they have to work under fire.
Exactly. Now we prepare for the performance itself, the interview, the first few real calls, handling the pressure and dealing with the inevitable feedback.
Right, because practicing in a quiet room is one thing. Performing when the stakes are high, when someone's evaluating you, or when a customer's upset, that's completely different.
It's a different beast entirely. Stress has a nasty habit of degrading skills. Things you could do perfectly in practice suddenly fall apart. So we need specific protocols to manage that pressure and, crucially, to learn rapidly from the feedback we get in those high-pressure moments.
Where do we start? Managing feedback seems key. Most people shy away from criticism.
And that's precisely the opposite of what's needed for rapid improvement. Protocol 51 is actively seeking critique. You have to flip your mindset. Criticism isn't an attack, it's high-value data.
High-value data.
Think about it. Praise feels good, but it often tells you very little about how to get better. You did great, okay?
Yeah.
What specifically was great, what wasn't? Honest, specific criticism, even if it stings the ego momentarily, tells you exactly where the system is failing and what needs fixing.
So how do you actively seek it, especially in practice role plays?
You explicitly ask for it. Before a practice session with a coach, a mentor, or even a peer, you say something like, okay, for this role play, please ignore anything I do well. I only want you to focus on the single biggest area where my pronunciation clarity dropped, or where my tone wasn't quite right for a formal British context, or where I hesitated too long. You're actively directing them to hunt for your vulnerabilities.
Turning them into flaw detectors for you.
Okay.
But just asking for critique isn't enough, right? You need the right kind of critique.
Precisely. That's Protocol 56, the specific question protocol. General questions get general, often unhelpful answers.
Like asking, so how was that call?
Exactly. What are you likely to get? Oh, it was pretty good. Or, yeah, it sounded fine. Useless or improvement. You need to ask laser-focused questions that target the specific challenges of this role and context.
Give me some examples of specific feedback questions for this scenario.
Okay, instead of, how was my accent? Ask. When I said the phrase, I appreciate your patience, did my intonation pattern fall correctly at the end in the typical British way? Or did it rise like a question? Or
Ah.
during the part where the customer got angry, did my pace speed up unintentionally? Or even, was my use of the phrase, bear with me, appropriate in that specific context? Or did it sound slightly too informal? Specificity gets actionable data.
And to make sure we're getting the full picture, not just one person's opinion.
We need Protocol 57, 360-degree feedback. Your performance isn't monolithic. It has different facets. So get input from different angles.
Who should be in that 360-degree circle?
Ideally, 3 types of people. 1, the language expert, the accent coach, the linguist. They'll focus on technical accuracy, phonemes, grammar, intonation rules. 2, your peers, maybe other people preparing for similar roles. They can give feedback on flow, clarity, whether you sounded confident and easy to understand.
Okay, expert and peer. Who's the third?
3, the total novice. Someone completely outside this field. Play them a recording of your mock call. Ask them, could you easily understand what the issue was and what I was proposing to do? Their feedback tells you if your communication is fundamentally clear, even stripping away the technical jargon and specific accent goals. Each perspective gives you different, valuable, non-overlapping data points.
Okay, so we're actively seeking specific multi-source critique, but critique can still sting. How do we handle it emotionally so we can actually use it?
This is crucial. Protocol 54. Separate ego from performance. You have to build a mental firewall
A firewall between.
between the feedback about your performance and your sense of self-worth. If a coach points out that your vowel sounds were inconsistent after the 3-minute mark, or that your attempt to de-escalate the angry customer actually made things worse, that is objective data about the skill execution. It is not a judgment on you as a person.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It takes practice. But viewing criticism as an instruction manual for fixing the machine, your skill set, rather than a personal attack, allows you to absorb it, analyze it, and act on it without getting defensive or demoralized.
And what's the immediate outward reaction when someone gives you that tough, honest feedback?
Simple but vital. Protocol 60. Thank the critic. Always. Immediately. Genuinely.
Why is thanking them so important?
Because they've given you a gift. They invested their time, attention, and expertise, and potentially risked social awkwardness to point out a flaw you might have missed or preferred to ignore. That honesty is incredibly valuable. Expressing gratitude encourages them to give you honest feedback again in the future.
And right after thanking them.
You immediately process the feedback, which ties into Protocol 58. Translation to action. Don't just nod and say thanks and then forget about it. Mentally, or even physically, translate that piece of criticism directly into a concrete action item for your next practice session.
For example,
If the feedback was, you consistently mispronounce the word schedule using an American-esque sound instead of the British she sound, your immediate mental translation is, action item. Tomorrow's practice will include 10 minutes dedicated solely to the word schedule. Record 20 repetitions, compare against native audio, integrate into practice sentences. Feedback instantly becomes a task.
right, turning criticism into a to-do list. Okay, we've mastered the feedback loop. Now the performance itself, the interview, the live call. How do we handle the pressure in the moment?
We need to prepare the nervous system. Protocol 81, visualization, and Protocol 83, simulation.
Simulation first, adding stress to practice.
Yes, you need to inoculate yourself against panic. Simulation 83 means intentionally making your practice harder and more stressful than the real thing might be. Don't just role-play a simple, polite query. Role-play a call where the customer is deliberately confusing or shouting, or asks highly technical questions you haven't fully memorized.
What else can make practice more stressful?
Introduce dual tasking. Try to type coherent case notes while maintaining perfect accent and handling the call flow. Use a timer to add time pressure. Maybe even practice with distracting background noise. The more your system gets used to performing the core skills while under simulated pressure, the less likely it is to crumble when the real pressure hits.
And visualization, how does mental rehearsal help?
Visualization 81 is incredibly powerful. The night before the interview or just before starting your shift, take a few quiet minutes, close your eyes, mentally rehearse the entire process going perfectly. See yourself greeting confidently. Hear your voice, calm and clear, using the correct British pronunciation and intonation. Feel the sense of control as you handle a tricky question smoothly. See the positive outcome.
What does that do neurologically?
It primes the neural pathways. It's like greasing the tracks. When you then have to perform the task for real, it feels more familiar, less daunting. It reduces the cognitive friction and anxiety associated with the unknown.
Okay, so we're prepped. But what about during the actual performance? When you're in the thick of it and maybe things start to feel shaky.
Two key tactics here. Protocol 84, focus on process, and Protocol 85, keyword.
Focus on process, not outcome.
Exactly. When a call starts going sideways, or you feel nervous in the interview, the natural tendency is to jump ahead and worry about the overall result. Am I going to fail? Will the customer complain? Protocol 84 says, ignore the macro outcome. Bring your focus entirely onto executing the current microstep perfectly. What is the very next sentence I need to say? Is my tone correct for this specific moment? That's all that matters right now, one step at a time.
And the keyword.
That's your emergency eject button for panic. Protocol 85, keyword. Choose a single simple word beforehand, something like steady, clear, focus, or breathe. When you feel panic rising or your mind starting to race, mentally shout that keyword to yourself. It acts as an anchor, interrupting the spiral of anxiety and immediately pulling your attention back to the present moment and the process. Protocol 84.
A mental reset button. Okay. But despite all this preparation, mistakes will happen, right? A slip of the tongue, forgetting a word.
Guaranteed. Especially in a complex language task under pressure. And that's where Protocol 87, accepting errors, comes in.
What does it mean to accept errors in this context?
It means acknowledging the mistake instantly and internally. Oops, wrong vowel sound there, or whoops, forgot that policy detail. Letting it go immediately and shifting 100% of your focus to the very next word, the very next moment, the very next step in the process.
So no dwelling.
Absolute zero dwelling. Don't let one small error cascade into a total meltdown by beating yourself up about it internally. That self-recrimination just compounds the problem. Often, your ability to recover smoothly and confidently from a minor slip-up is actually perceived more positively by an interviewer or customer than a robotic, flawless performance would be. Show resilience.
Okay, that's a really robust toolkit for handling the performance pressure and the feedback cycle. But just getting through the interview or the first few calls, that's not the end game, is it? What about achieving real adaptable competence? Moving beyond just executing the plan.
Exactly. The final set of protocols pushes us beyond just initial competence. It's about deepening understanding and moving towards true mastery in that call center environment.
So moving from being a highly skilled mimic to someone who genuinely understands the game they're playing.
Precisely. It's about internalizing the why behind the what's. Moving beyond just following instructions to developing real situational judgment, especially crucial when dealing with the nuances of British customer interactions.
Where does that deepening start? Moving away from just scripts.
It starts with Protocol 72, principles over rules,
Yeah.
strongly supported by Protocol 71, understanding context.
Principles over rules. Explain that.
Memorized scripts and procedures are rules. They're essential to start, but they're brittle. They often shatter the moment a customer says something completely unexpected, something not covered in the script.
Right. Real life is messy.
Exactly. True mastery comes from understanding the underlying principles of excellent customer service within that specific cultural context. For British clientele, core principles might include things like maximize politeness and deference, ensure absolute clarity to avoid misunderstanding, maintain emotional composure, de-escalate conflicts subtly.
So the principle guides you when the rule doesn't fit.
Yes. If the rule says use phrase X to transfer a call, but your understanding of the principle of empathy in the situation tells you the clearly distressed British client needs another moment of reassurance before the transfer, you follow the principle. It allows for intelligent, flexible improvisation that still achieves the core goal.
And understanding the context, Protocol 71 feeds into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why do these principles apply? Understanding the context means digging into the why. Why does British business culture often value understatement and a certain level of formality? Why is direct confrontation generally avoided in service interactions?
So it's cultural understanding.
It's understanding the history and philosophy behind the communication style. When you grasp that, you stop just reciting lines that feel foreign. You start genuinely operating within that cultural framework. You understand why saying, "I shall certainly look into that for you," lands differently and often better than a more casual, "Sure, I'll check it out."
Okay. Understanding principles and context allows for better improvisation. What about predicting how interactions will unfold?
That's where we build internal maps. Protocol 76, building mental models.
Mental models, like simulations in your head.
Sort of. A mental model is your internal representation of how a complex system works. In this case, the system is a customer service interaction, particularly a potentially tricky one with a British customer. Your model needs to accurately predict not just the likely script flow, but also how different types of customers, example, polite but frustrated, quietly angry, confused but articulate, might react to different phrases or approaches.
The better the model, the better the prediction.
Exactly. The more accurate your mental model of how these interactions typically flow, the better you become at anticipating friction points, the faster and more accurate your decision-making becomes during the call, and ultimately the smoother the resolution. You're essentially running quick simulations and predicting outcomes before you even speak.
And this skill doesn't exist in isolation, right? It connects to everything else.
Correct. Which brings us to Protocol 78, thinking in systems. Your brilliant communication skill, your perfect accent, they're just one node in a larger system.
What's the rest of the system?
It includes how quickly and accurately can you type notes while speaking? How well do you actually know the product or service details you need to convey? How efficiently can you navigate the company's ticketing system or knowledge base to find information? How does your communication interact with the team's overall workflow?
So mastery isn't just about talking well.
No. Mastery is about optimizing the entire flow. How seamlessly can you integrate accessing information, communicating it with perfect clarity and appropriate British professional tone, performing the necessary actions in the system, and documenting it all concurrently? You have to see how all the pieces fit together and optimize the whole process, not just your little part.
That's a much bigger picture. Finally, to wrap all this up, there's a protocol that sounds almost aesthetic. Protocol 77, seeking the elegance.
It does sound a bit lofty, perhaps, but in any high-level skill, whether it's chess or surgery or customer service, there's a kind of beauty and elegance in a solution that is perfectly efficient, effective, and seemingly effortless.
What does elegance look like in a call center context?
For an agent handling a complex complaint, elegance might be resolving the issue correctly and completely, using the absolute minimum number of words necessary, maintaining that perfect, calm, deferential British tone throughout, satisfying all procedural requirements, and leaving the customer feeling genuinely heard, respected, and valued, all in one smooth interaction.
So it's about efficiency, effectiveness, and experience, all optimized.
It's recognizing that there isn't just one right way, but often one way that is more concise, more professional, more elegant. Training your ear and your mind to recognize that quality in examples, and then striving to achieve it in your own work, that's the step beyond mere competence. It's moving towards artistry in your profession.
Wow. Okay, that is a truly comprehensive, rigorous framework. We've journeyed all the way from getting your head right at the very beginning
Setting that crucial mindset,
through strategically breaking down the massive task,
deconstructing the skill,
getting into the intense, focused, deliberate practice mechanics,
engaging in that deep practice,
preparing for and handling the high-pressure performance and feedback,
mastering performance under pressure.
and finally deepening the understanding towards true, adaptable mastery.
It really is a system, and it's designed to be almost unbeatable if applied consistently, precisely because it emphasizes intentional, focused action over just hoping you'll passively absorb the skills. You're not waiting for competence, you're engineering it.
You're building it protocol by protocol. So the message to you, our listener, is that this level of competence, nailing that interview, it's absolutely achievable through the relentless daily application of these kinds of principles.
No question, it requires discipline, but the path is clear.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought, something to mull over that pushes beyond just landing the job, using a couple of the later protocols. Because mastery doesn't actually stop once you've perfectly mimicked the required accent or memorized all the scripts.
Right. We're hinting here at Protocol 92, your own signature combined with Protocol 96, the infinite game.
Your own signature? What does that mean in this context?
It means that once you achieve true mastery, once you know the rules of British politeness inside out, once the accent structure is second nature, once the technical knowledge is deeply embedded, you reach a point where you understand the rules so well that you can begin to consciously, skillfully infuse your own unique professional personality into the interaction.
So you're not just a robot executing the script.
Exactly. You stop being purely a mimic. You become a unique communicator who uses the established structure, the required politeness, the necessary accent clarity, as a framework, not a rigid cage. You operate authentically within the required professional boundaries. That's your signature.
You own the skill and can express yourself through it professionally.
Precisely. And that connects beautifully to the final idea, Protocol 96, the infinite game. This whole journey, learning the skills, getting the job, performing well, developing your signature. It's not a finite game with a single endpoint called success.
What kind of game is it then?
It's an infinite game. The real goal isn't just the job title or perfect performance score. The real goal is simply to continue playing, to keep exploring the nuances of professional communication, to keep adapting as the company or customer expectations evolve, to keep refining that professional signature indefinitely.
So the learning never really stops.
Never. That commitment to continuous improvement, playing the infinite game of professional mastery, starts right now with the first protocol, long before you even sit down for that interview. So take these protocols, build your plan, and go execute. Good luck.